counting you down to kickoff. This is College Football Saturday with Alex Kirry, Christian Esparza, and Alex Napoles on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome in, everybody. It's the second edition and the absolute very first college football week one edition of your College Football Saturday right here on the KSL Sports Zone. Alex Kirry, Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles. We have all sorts of screens up in the studios, and we're watching football now. Multiple games, of course. Everything getting started again on Thursday night. We had a lot of games last night. We have a mountain of games that you're going to be sick of it by the end of it. And when Utah tonight kicks off against UCLA at 1 a.m., we're going to be so excited. No. What was they're not even playing in Hawaii. They're playing at the Rose Bowl. It's a 9 p.m. kickoff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just making sure I check my schedule right. First of all, how are you guys doing on a week one in college football? Everything feel good?
Everything feels
We're
great
good now. You can catch us on the post-game show for Utah after that late game.
Oh, yeah, man.
Some old Pac-12 after dark action happening, man.
Oh, my gosh, those old days. But I'll tell you what, if Utah, we have a lot to talk about, but, man, if Utah could go down there, no one's going to be talking outside of Utah. People just want to see what Nico Iamaleava is going to do, and nobody cares outside of Utah, like, oh, this Devin Dampier kid, he looks pretty sharp. It's a great time for them to be able to maybe sneak in and absolutely do what they've done in years past, which is blow up the Rose Bowl. We've got tons going on the program today. As we look at how things are shaking out for the teams locally, you just kind of you sit and wait. It's a waiting game on that quarterback question. Utah State doesn't have a quarterback question. BYU does have a quarterback question. Utah does have a quarterback question in the sense that we haven't seen him play in a Utah uniform. So what are the expectations? Let's start things off here with the BYU side of things. Aaron Roderick, what's his anxiety level for his true freshman today? Because they try to play it cool in those press conferences. They try to play it cool in post-practice. What's the reality of the best way to treat this situation with your true freshman, Bear Bachmeier, getting the first start of the year?
I think first off, you're grateful that you're not opening the season against a P4 opponent like Utah is, right? I think it definitely helps to be opening against Portland State, no offense to them, but to have an FCS team as your week one, season opener, that kind of is going to allow Bear to get up to speed a little more while still playing opponents other than the defense he's been practicing against all summer, but not quite to the level of Big 12 defenses or an SEC defense or a Big 10 defense or any of that.
It certainly shapes up well for them. I think we're having a different conversation, if BYU was heading to the Rose Bowl and playing UCLA tonight, right? But it's the fact that they're taking on Portland State at home. I feel like this is a perfect situation to potentially run your offense the way that you would down the stretch and down the line in Big 12 play, right? Run the offense regularly. Don't hold anything back for Bear Bachmeier and allow him that opportunity to get his feet under him against Portland State. I thought during the college roundtable that we had earlier this week, DJ brought up a phenomenal point, and he said that this is probably going to be the easiest opponent and the weakest opponent that BYU plays all season. So what better way to get Bear Bachmeier going than to have him have a performance against Portland State? I think that would be the best case scenario and the best start for BYU this season.
He even said too, I think DJ even said, this is going to be the worst opponent you play in your the entire rest of your life in football. Yeah. It was like that, and it wasn't necessarily a diss on Portland State. I think it's because you're seeing a shift into let's take off one of those what we would call cupcake games in the past, and you add another power team in there. You're going to have an FCS as long as the powers that be allow you to schedule an FCS team, and as long as you feel like that's something that we could do. But I mean, we all have seen how. I mean, Army losing to Tarleton State last night in double overtime. It's not like we're looking around going, I've never seen something that crazy happen before. Tarleton State's gotten a couple FBS wins before. Those FCS teams, when they show up and they're the really good ones, they're really good. Portland State is not one of those teams. Massively undersized. They have not a lot of talent. They had a question mark at quarterback coming into the season. They have a guy who got his first start last week and put exactly 0 points on the board. So it's great because what you're going to see now is you can roll it out a little bit more slowly. So you have Portland State this week, and then when you level up next week to Stanford, I don't care what people say. They kind of go, yeah, they judge them by that first game out in Hawaii. They lose that one, and everybody goes, well, Stanford stinks, and Bear Bachmeier should hang 50 on them. It's like, you know what? There should be some different version. What's great about the way it's set up is Portland State's not very good. Stanford is better, but still in a down situation. East Carolina is the best of the 3 teams they're playing in the out-of-conference, and they're on the road in Greenville, North Carolina in 2 weeks. And so it's a good kind of leveling up. Because then it gets real. You got to go to Folsom Field and you got to play Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes, who have a lot of things that they need to have improved as well. So I love the way that it has worked out. It's almost like they made the schedule after, they named Bear the starter, even though these are done years and years and years in advance.
Right.
But I think it's no better situation for him to be able to kind of just ease into. And I'm not trying to say that to be an easy situation. Whatever your expectations of what Portland State's going to be, there's going to be some jitters. And not just from Bear, by the way. We always look and go, oh, man, this guy's going out there. You have a massive amount of veterans who are out there, too. And when you go out there and you don't get your feet under you right off the bat, like, it takes a second. You know what I mean? Let's see where that mentality is. But I think BYU fans are just excited to get this thing kicked off. They want to usher in that new era post Jake Retzlaff, and we'll see kind of how that ends up working out. But the reins are in his hands. I'm interested to see all the words are is that he got better as a leader. Even like everybody started to turn to him and look to him, and you're kind of like, man, that's a lot to take in. A team full of a handful of guys who are going to be in the NFL, and they're asking you to be their leader. So I think there's a lot that's not on the field itself. When it comes to being on the field itself, there are tons of things that I'm excited about for BYU and BYU fans. For me, the wide receiver group is going to make Bear Bachmeier feel comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
The running back room is going to make him feel absolutely solid, and he can calm those nerves with what's going on in the backfield back there. So don't do too much. Have the guy go out there, have a decent day. Play him as much as you can. Don't treat him like the other. Now, you want to keep a quarterback healthy, but, I mean, just give him as many reps and as many series as you can. Jay Hill this week talked about pulling a lot of these guys on defense, right? He's like, yeah, I want to get all those second-string guys in as much as possible. Those guys rotate in quite a bit anyway, but he's looking to get depth going. At the quarterback spot, you just need actual live game reps with a crowd and with fans and with, adversity here and there, a 3rd and long, a 2nd and short, a scramble, a little bit of a blown-up route or something. How's he going to handle it? So that's what I love to see is just like how BYU is going to actually figure this thing out. And from an X's and O's standpoint, the good news is Portland State's not going to be, you can make mistakes, and then you can still come back and still win this thing by 4 or 5 touchdowns.
Obviously, we want to see and hope that he doesn't commit as many mistakes, but the reality is it's going to happen. He's a true freshman. It's his first game. There's going to be jitters. I think BYU fans just need to have some patience with Bear Bachmeier, and of course, like you mentioned, Alex, if it's 35, if BYU's up by 35 points, I think it would be in their best interest to keep Bear Bachmeier in the game no matter what, right? Obviously, I think it'd be great to see McKay Hillstead. I think it'd be great to see Bourget or whomever they decide to make QB2. But I think in this game, you want to get Bear Bachmeier the most reps you possibly can. So even if you're up maybe by 35, I don't think it'd be a bad idea to keep Bear Bachmeier in the game.
There's a fine line because you would
obviously there's the question of injury, right?
You would always hate for an injury to happen. But man, if you're killing Portland State and heaven forbid something does happen to Bear, then the fan base is absolutely going to riot. Like you're saying, Alex, both Alexes, that is so important to get Bear Bachmeier as many reps as possible today against Portland State, against an FCS team. Live game reps that he has never had at the collegiate level before. That is the end goal of today. That is the whole point of today. That is the whole point of why you schedule an FCS team for your first game of the season. So it is a very hard line to draw. I wonder if it's more about maybe quarters instead of what the score is. I wonder if we're going to see maybe just 3 quarters and then pull the starters, or 3 quarters and pulling Bear. But we'll see. I do like the conversation about the backup quarterback because there were conversations about,
I think we all just assumed, right? I thought it was just going to be.
right.
I thought it was going to be McKay Hillstead.
Like halfway through camp, it was like, Bourguet's kind of dropped out of the race,
Yeah.
and now it's a two-man race. So then you assume that McKay Hillstead is the backup, but then they released the depth chart last week, and the backup quarterback listed it said McKay Hillstead or Tracy Bourguet.
They love to do that kind of stuff. I don't know what that actually means. Some of that might actually mean that maybe McKay Hillstead's a little dinged up. Hey, guess what? We're going to actually find out. If somebody's hurt before this game, we're going to find out this year. What is it, 90 minutes before the game that we get to find out what the actual release
availability report.
Yeah, I can't wait. Listen, nothing makes me more excited about Bronco Mendenhall having to fill out an availability report in his life, and Kyle Whittingham too, and Kalani too, because he learned at the feet of Kyle to just keep his mouth shut or whatever. But we're gonna find out.
Well, you know what? I hate that because that means we didn't get depth charts for Utah and Utah State.
You saw those blank sheets of paper.
We got the BYU depth chart. We didn't ever get a depth chart for Utah. Utah State.
Would you rather have the availability or would you rather have the depth chart?
Honestly, I'd rather have the depth chart.
What's funny about it is the ors that they put on the sheet make it irrelevant. They like to just screw around with all of us anyway, mess with our heads. But you're right. The question after the game. So which one is worth having an answer for? When the media members in that post-game press room asked Kalani, do you think it was early to pull Bear? He was doing really well. He was marching down the field, and he had another almost 2 quarters that he could have kept playing. Do you think it might have been a better situation to keep him in for rep's sake? That question is a lot easier to answer than, Coach, what's the wisdom between on keeping your true freshman quarterback in during what we would consider garbage time? Then you have to weigh out. Which one do you want to answer? The first one, right? And so these coaches go, I'm probably going to lean on that. But you also want them to have good experiences in there. You want them to string together successes. The first parts of these games are scripted. Like the first 10 or 12 plays are going to be scripted. And I'm interested to see how much that they said, hey, we're going to push you and we're going to make you run this play, versus I guarantee that they come to Bear and they say, hey, here are these 15 or 20 plays. Give me the 5 that you love the most.
Because you're never going to be able to do that again this season,
right?
Presumably.
Well,
right?
I mean, they'll still script plays. They do that. But they
but
won't
as far as giving Bear control.
Yeah, and I want to say, hey, listen, let's get you comfortable. What do you like to throw right here? Anything you want, Coach. Is like, no.
Yeah. What's
that one play you really, really want to go to, like right off the top? That's a pass play. And maybe they're running the ball the first 2 times. But I think you do. You give them a little bit of control. I think that they do. Like if we talk about player-run programs to the amount that we've been talking about it this week, then you put your money where your mouth is on that BYU, on the offensive call player. And I think that all these guys, we talked about it yesterday on Football Friday, these guys have grown up so much as coaches. A-Rod in particular. You think about the guy losing his gig at Utah to where now he's a guy that other P4 programs are like, we want that guy at our school. And that the way you get to that is you take your lumps, you struggle a little bit, you figure out what works, and you keep going back to the well of the stuff that's phenomenal for you. So in the end, I love the idea of Bear being able to play as much as they'll let him. But you're right. At some point, I think even fans, when it's 51-10, and you're looking around, even fans are going to be like, I don't know if I keep him in.
You don't want to be. You don't want to be anxious watching this game. You shouldn't be. You shouldn't feel anxiety watching BYU play Portland State.
And I've seen Portland State bring some anxiety to that building before. It was 14-6 in 2017 in Kalani's second year. And Portland State came in there, and everybody's like, "What?"
Yeah.
And everyone's going, no, they're just getting their feet under him. And Keaton Slovis, when he played Sam Houston, and you remember the score of that game?
Oh, yeah.
14-0. Yeah. And everyone's like, what a great shutout by the Jay Hill's defense. And you're like, I'm a little concerned that he threw the 2 picks. Yeah, and the offense could only score 2 touchdowns against a brand new FBS program. So I'm not going to look for red flags, but I think that obviously you'll get pointed in the right direction. The good news is, and Napoles, we've been talking about this all week too, we tend to be wondering, well, what the heck's going on with Bear? But you know what the most interesting question is for me is, how is Jay Hill going to improve even more on that defense? And what kind of luxury does he have with those guys who are in that linebacking core who are so dang ridiculously good? Where does BYU's defense go from here? Because that's a unit I think that people look at and they go, oh, they're good. But there were some changes there, and Jay Hill's got to get his guys dialed up.
What a phenomenal hire Jay Hill has been for BYU, man. Him coming over and becoming the defensive coordinator, after spending some time as head coach at Weber State. He brings some of his guys with him, and every year that we've seen J-Hill with this team, there's been a step and an evolution on the defensive side of the ball. Last year, I think, was a major step in BYU's, in the way that they play defense, and the way that they scheme things up, and the way that they look. They look like the best defense in the Big 12. And I think that this season we'll continue to see them taking those steps, because J-Hill, it's just what he does. Every year they've gotten better and better, and I'm excited to see what they're able to do this season. Another year under J-Hill.
Who's this? Duquesne and Pitt up on the screen? Gosh, I've been waiting to see what the Dukes could do against Pittsburgh. But the big one, of course, everybody's talking about is Texas versus Ohio State today. That's also kicking off. That kicks off your season, like, officially. The good news is, when a 1 and 2 used to meet before, or when a 1 and 5 used to meet before, these games meant way too much for an August. Excuse me. For August, what is it? August 30th? Are we in September yet? Oh,
No,
it's okay.
It's the 30th.
We're still in August. And back in the day, these games, they meant way too much. And they don't. And look, the game should mean a lot for these two teams, and they will. They're going to take them freaking serious. But when it really comes down to it, you want to see you want to see the best teams out there. And when two of the best teams play each other, you can't just count out one of those best teams for the rest of the dang season because of it. So Texas and Ohio State are kicking off here, and that's a really fun one to watch as well. I want to get to the guys who we're not talking about on this BYU squad. Are there guys that people are flying under the radar for you that you go, man, they're not talking enough about that, and Bear takes all the air out of the room because he's the quarterback and he's a true freshman? But at some point, we're going to be talking about a lot of other guys in the next few days. Come Monday after the press conferences, we're going to be like, what a great performance by this guy, this guy, this guy. Who are some of those guys that float under the radar for the fans out there who might be listening and going, oh, yeah, that guy's really good?
I think guys flying under the radar, maybe, and I think a lot of people are talking about him because his brother's going to be the starting quarterback, but I think Tiger is one of those guys that are flying under the radar. He's going to be taking some punt returns, and he's going to be able to come in and make some plays, and I think that him coming over, having that chemistry with his brother, I think that can be something special to watch, and I think that he's going to be one of those guys that comes in and surprises a couple of people, so I'm excited to see what Tiger can do for this BYU offense.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I'm going to go another receiver. I'm going to go JoJo Phillips.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk about him last year as far as guys in the receiver room were really hyping him up, saying we can't wait to see what he looks like. He's going to be a big part of this team in the future. And I know bringing in Tiger and having Chase there, it's still going to keep JoJo from playing one of the main roles, but I think he's definitely going to have a lot of opportunities to shine. And I would assume that Coach Roderick is excited to get him on the field.
Tulane, Tulane on the board right off the bat. They're leading. The very first thing that they do in their first series of offense, I didn't see what the nature of the touchdown was, but they just showed a highlight of Tulane scoring their first touchdown of the year.
Jake Retzloff, touchdown pass.
Did he throw it?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Are we going to be doing this all year? We dip into the
Probably.
Will be.
Probably.
Well, especially because the rest of the G5 powerhouses haven't looked great yet.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
It looks like a wide open spot for Tulane to come in.
I love the idea that, look, and the good news is that for the program side of things, there's like zero hard feelings. They all love that guy. They all, they know the circumstances, how weird it was. They know what the honor code situation. They all know what goes on, and they're all like, this is not the type of person that he is. Like, and so for him to go to Tulane, you see guys transfer and they got the middle finger out when they're going down the road. I don't think that's Jake Retzlaff, and I don't think BYU fans are like that, but it's going to be hard not to make that comparison because now that Boise State lost, hear me out. BYU fans are going to be dipped in wondering what Tulane's going. But I wonder if they want him to go or if they don't want him to go. You know what I mean? Like I don't know where they're at on that. If you're a fan of BYU, I don't know if do you want to see Jake Retzlaff go to the college football playoff? I guess only if you get there too.
I think it would sting. Exactly. I think it would sting a little bit if Tulane makes it and BYU doesn't.
Yeah.
I think there might be a little bit of sting there for BYU
Well,
fans.
especially if you're starting a true freshman.
Exactly.
Because you would assume the reason that you're not there at the end of the season is because your true freshman quarterback has struggles, right? So I think you would definitely feel like on the outside looking in, you'd have some FOMO.
100%.
So Northwestern, they're not the strongest Big Ten team. They are at Tulane, but if Tulane starts the season off with a Big Ten win, they're going to be on people's radars. More so than even if Boise State would have beaten USF, we would have moved right on because we would have expected it. Northwestern's not great, but we look at Tulane, and if they go and they win this game 28-7, then people are going to go, hey, man, Tulane, and they'll start getting up the boards, and you got to get up those boards early. Next up for BYU, I wanted to get you guys' thoughts on Kalani going into year 10. We've talked a little bit about this yesterday. How good was it to get like Harvey Longie's perspective on so much, dude, because he had his feet during the Bronco era at BYU. He was recruited by Kyle Whittingham, played for him for a year, and then played for Kalani in that 2016 season that was so successful for him and got out before the 27 season. And so watching that perspective, what have you seen? And you guys have been working here. We've all been working together quite some time. Kalani has grown up quite a bit. This is year 10 for him. What do you think the best thing is about him now in year 10 versus what he was in year 1?
I think he's the perfect embodiment of BYU. Everything that BYU preaches, everything that BYU is about, Kalani Sitake embodies it. He is the perfect leader and the best candidate to be leading this BYU football team. And they've been successful under Kalani Sitake. I think that he'll continue to have long success with BYU because he is BYU football.
I totally agree with there. You think of the culture that has been established at BYU, and that is because of him leading them to the Big 12 from independence. I think of that painting, of George Washington on the boat crossing the river,
right.
carrying the flag.
Right.
That is Kalani Sitake, riding the ship, keeping the guys rallied behind him, and they're all bought in. And it shows not only on the field, but then off the field. You see they didn't lose any of their assistant coaches from last year, and that definitely speaks to these guys want to be there. I am almost certain that Jay Hill was probably getting calls, right? Jay Hill is probably one of the most prized coaching candidates there is in college football after what he did with BYU's defense last year.
Right.
And I would imagine that he turned down some offers to come back and stick with Kalani Sitake and stick with this BYU team. So Kalani is everything that BYU needs, and they rewarded him, obviously, making him they gave him a contract extension, right, or a raise, and then they made him a associate athletic director. So giving him a new role with the program and helping him guide BYU athletics forward, that speaks to everything he is.
I think the thing that I've noticed, there were some dicey moments. So I was up in the booth during the Royal Purple Las Vegas Bowl, which was like the most awkward moment on the planet. They had just hired Kalani. Tom Holmoe invited Kalani up to the booth at the end of 2015, that December of 2015 bowl game. It was a weird freaking bowl game. Utah was up in like 4 minutes, 35-0. The game ended up slowing down quite a bit, and BYU came back and then just came up short. It was 35-28, I think, at the end. But it was just a weird game. Broncos' last game, obviously. And they decided a good time to roll out Kalani and announce him as the new head coach was when Bronco literally was like walking through after he had just done his on-air post-game coach interview that he's like obligated to, and he's like, hi, Mike. And Kalani's like, how you doing, coach? Like, and then they introduce him, and he kicks off there. He had a crazy good roster. And then after that, I think the things that really got his attention, and he watched head coaches be head coaches for a long time. He knew exactly what he was supposed to get out of people. But when you actually have to be that guy, it took some growing pains. It took some growing up. And I think going into year 10, he's as cool and as calm as I've ever seen him. And I'd say that the last 4 or 5 seasons. Now, he's also probably the most intense dude that pretends like he's not intense after the game, and he'll be like, we're just going to play a little bit harder, I love our guys. I love our fans. And you're like, he had to like scream on his way out of the tunnel, like, because he is fired up. He is absolutely a competitor. And so that his team embodies it. And I think he has just allowed his players to run the program. And you see it. They have some really, really good leaders this year, and they have a standard that they live by. And it was nowhere near that 9 or 10 years ago.
And I think to me that's going to be the key to the success this season, right? It's going to be the leaders that you're talking about. I think the Kalani and the coaching staff do a phenomenal job, but really the success of BYU is going to lean heavily on the veterans and the leaders they have in that locker room. It's going to fall on Chase Roberts. It's going to fall on LG Martin. It's going to fall on Tanner Wall. It's going to fall on Jack Kelly, Isaiah Glasgow. The list goes on and on, right? They have a lot of returning talent. They have a lot of players who last season were absolutely phenomenal. They are now the captains. They are now the leaders of this team. And so that, to me, is going to be the success of BYU. And I think, when you have a guy like Kalani at the helm, leading these guys and kind of helping them navigate the program and navigate the growth of this team, I think that it's just a perfect recipe for success.
Christian, give me your and let's do this. I'm putting you guys on the spot here. Give me a preseason defensive MVP for BYU and a preseason offensive MVP for BYU.
Defense, I mean, I got to go with Glasgow, especially after what we saw in that Alamo Bowl. Listening to the roundtable show on Wednesday, I know that Hans, the color analyst for BYU's radio call, is stoked.
He's a freak athlete. He's a freak athlete.
Right, to see how Jay Hill can utilize Glasgow, and it seems like he was kind of unlocked during that Alamo Bowl. And he had a great regular season too, but really against Colorado, he looked like something special, right? And I think that's going to carry over. I think Jay Hill is very, very excited to see what he can do with an athlete of that level. Offensively, you got to go. I'm just going to take the easy answer here. Chase Roberts, returning, leading receiver, and he's just going to be the safety net for Bear Bachmeier. He's going to be the go-to. If you need a first down, if you're throwing the ball, where's Chase? If you need a play, where's Chase? And that's going to help Bear Bachmeier move along, and I think he's going to be the leader on that offense.
What do you have, Napoles?
I think for me, I'm going to take the other easy answers. I think offensively, it's going to be LG Martin.
I like it.
I think again, you have to find the balance between the passing game and the run game, and so I think LG Martin in the run game will be a huge key to BYU success this season. LG Martin is my offensive MVP, and then on the defensive side, I got to show a little bit of love to the Kearns Cougar. Jack Kelly.
Nice.
I don't hate that pick at all, man.
Biased.
It is a little bit biased.
I mean, but you could flip a coin, and the two guys you picked, you could put them both down. I think that they're going to ask Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasgow, frankly, to do something different this year when it comes to the pass rush. I think you're going to see those guys getting in, going at it, and being hardcore, extremely. They're going to be a 1-2 punch that is going to be one of the best in the conference. And
they're going to get the numbers this year that they didn't necessarily rack up last year as far as sacks.
Oh, BYU's rush defense has been terrible for a decade. And I say that not being mean to Tyler Batty. It seems like there was a different – it seemed like he brought something a little bit different. I don't think he was a bad pass rusher. He had 1.5 or 2.5 sacks, I think, last year, and I think he had maybe 2 the year before. Those aren't the type of numbers you see from elite pass rushers. And you've got to set it up for these guys to be able to make sure that you can get them to the quarterback. So if you use Isaiah Glasgow or Jack Kelly in some schemes to where he's looking more like a Kyle Van Noy at BYU, why not? Why not? All right. We'll take another break here. Oh, can I give you mine?
Yeah.
And I like this attitude of we're not going to take the same ones.
We took all the easy answers,
No, and we're not going to take the same ones. So I'm going to say the newest face, the disruptor in the middle. And it'll be tough because the numbers are never going to be great for defensive tackles. But Keanu Tanavasa, I think, brings something that defense needs, on top of the fact that he's an insane leader. So keep him healthy. I love Keanu Tanavasa just creating such havoc in the middle that everybody has a better year because of that. On the offensive side of the football, tough one because both of the ones you guys picked would be the easy ones. You know what? I'm going to go full tight end action. Give me Carson Ryan for get him on the Mackey semifinal list.
All right.
Let's see. Let's see some tight ends show up. Use your guy, man. Have him be another weapon. Why not?
Speaking about guys flying under the radar,
I know
Carson Ryan is flying
he
under the radar.
benefited so much from the fact that Keanu Tanavasa transferred to BYU because then they're all
mad at him.
He took all the hate. He took all the hate. Probably took all the money too.
Nobody's talking about Carson
Right.
Ryan, and it seems like during the media observation windows he's stepped up. He made some big plays, and so that's a guy definitely flying under the radar. I'm excited to see what Carson Ryan brings to this BYU side.
All right, here's what we got going on. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We're going to have Mitch Harper, our BYU insider for KSLSports.com, is going to join us as we continue on with this BYU discussion. We'll get his thoughts on this, plus how the Big 12 is sort of very mid this first weekend so far against in the games that people were watching the most. So We'll come back. We've got more to go. And when we do come back to our College Football Saturday, we'll get a score update as well of these games going across the country. And they're going. It's official. 97.5 EKSL Sports Zone.
This is College Football Saturday on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
College Football Saturday, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Let's do a quick scoreboard update, get you caught up on scores from across the country. Mississippi State leads Southern Miss 7-3 halfway through the first quarter there. Maryland is up 7-0 over Florida Atlantic. Purdue 14-0 up over Ball State. Pittsburgh just had a fumble recovery touchdown. They are up 14-0 over Duquesne. We mentioned earlier Jake Retzloff getting his first touchdown as a member of the Tulane Green Wave. They lead Northwestern 7-3. But the big one, number 1 Texas against number 3 Ohio State, still scoreless, 0-0 there midway through the first quarter. There's your scoreboard update.
You always want to be confident in yourself and your ability. I think with the support cast, Coach Mitchell and Coach A-Rod, and even the quarterbacks in the room elevating everybody's game, I would say that my confidence level was pretty high.
There's Bear Bachmeier there. It is time to welcome in Mitch Harper here on College Football Saturday, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Mitch, thanks for joining us to preview this Week 1.
Good morning, guys. Happy to be on a College Football Saturday. We talk so much on these airwaves about these weeks, and it's finally here, and so excited to get it rolling today. It should be an exciting day.
Mitch, first, before we get into BYU, the Big 12 kind of going flat a little bit over the biggest games that they've played. Auburn goes to Waco and kind of makes Dave Aranda's guys look homely, man. I don't know. I know it's early. We got to get our feet under us, but you and I both didn't like Auburn, don't like Hugh Freeze that much. And in the end, I was like, I was kind of surprised that they couldn't get Sawyer Robertson going for as much as we've talked about these guys in the offseason. Through 6 seasons, Dave Aranda's 31-31, and that was a total missed opportunity by Aranda. And when you dive in deeper into that record, 11 of those wins were in one season when they won the Big 12 in 2021 and won the Sugar Bowl. 3 of 6 on fourth down. That cost them dearly because that led to 10 Auburn points. So Baylor choked last night. I mean, you just don't get those opportunities very often. And when you look long-term at scheduling. Uh-oh, did we lose Mitch?
Spot with an SEC team.
There we go. Mitch, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there you go. We just lost you for a couple seconds there, so then we got nervous. As you also look at Colorado last night, are they faking it? I mean, on a night like that where Georgia Tech gave the ball over so many dang times and all the talk of what Colorado can do, I think that they are much improved on defense, but they are missing their Heisman Trophy winner and their All-American quarterback.
They are better on defense, and I think they're going to be better over the course of this season. And I think it just shows, too, that Coach Prime is invested in being at Colorado. I think many people just thought that, he was just a flash in the pan and just coaches kids, but he doesn't have any ties there now. It's just so Colorado's going to be really interesting to follow this season. But that was a missed opportunity and poor clock management by Coach Prime. Not using any of those 2 timeouts. So, missed opportunity. The Big 12 is winless against these Power 4 opponents. Cincinnati had a blown opportunity against Nebraska. It was funny, though, how in that game, everyone talks about Big 10 and Big 12 is just far inferior. I watched, Cincinnati against Nebraska, a great brand in Nebraska, and it's like, personnel-wise, it didn't look any sort of gap.
Yeah, Cincinnati was good. Cincinnati was pretty darn good. Sorsby could have had a way better night, but you're high on the Bearcats a little bit, and they were flying around, man.
They were, and I thought their receiving group was going to be one of the best in the Big 12, and maybe they still could be, but they were a no-show against Nebraska. They couldn't get anything downfield, just like they were last year. But I do think their ground attack is pretty good. And the issue with Cincinnati, though, I'm not going to ever trust Scott Satterfield late in a game to win it. Like, it's just that fit has just been poor from the get-go. I just like their personnel, and I think they can overcome some of maybe the deficiencies on the coaching staff. But you saw the issues with Satterfield. And Sorsby made a poor decision, sure, but I was uninspired by that close. But then also Oklahoma State, I thought Haas Haney was fantastic, but then they had to go to Zane Flores, and now it looks like it's going to be maybe a mess without Haney for a while. But yeah, just a poor start out of the gates for the Big 12, and that's unfortunate because you just wanted to see this league really kind of show its strength a little bit, the depth of the conference, and so far they've kind of struggled to do that.
Let's jump into some BYU talk now here, Mitch. And obviously the biggest storyline coming into this season for BYU was the quarterback, Bear Bachmeier, gets named QB1 for week 1 against Portland State. How much is a reasonable ask of Bear Bachmeier today? What can we anticipate from Bear tonight in his debut with the BYU Cougars?
I think it's reasonable to expect that, he's going to take some shots downfield. I think BYU's going to run the ball quite a bit, but I think that you got to have a big workload of getting him comfortable throwing the football in this offense in a game. And there's no better opportunity to do it than against an FCS team that just has struggled for years. Portland State's been a bad FCS team for a decade now. Alex Caressa's not coming through that door. So I think that, Bear Bachmeier should let it fly. I mean, back in the day when Lavelle Edwards was the head coach, BYU always had a tendency, first play of the season, take a shot downfield. I would love to see that. Let Bear show off that arm strength to a sold-out Lavelle Edwards Stadium crowd, get the people fired up because, the AI videos with a bear in a 47 jersey, people are loving that. They want to see that arm strength on display. So I think there's going to be a good workload, a good balance. But I do also expect that L.J. Martin will be used quite a bit in that first half and to get him rolling. But at the same time, Sione Mo as well to really kind of unleash him. So, but I think that for Bear Bachmeier, get him settled into this passing attack and throwing the rock and getting comfortable because you want to build some momentum coming out of this one as you get into tougher opponents down the road.
Mitch, obviously it's a fine line between building that momentum, but then obviously you don't want to risk injury while they're playing a non-conference FCS team. Do you think that there is like a snap count on Bear or maybe quarter count, or if they get the score to a certain amount, how much of Bear are we going to see tonight?
That's one of the interesting things I feel in this matchup is, how long do they go? Because you can't simulate game snaps, but at the same time you got to keep him healthy because he's your QB1. I would say, 3 quarters. You go with Bear Bachmeier and you run this offense and you give him 3 full quarters to operate, and then that fourth quarter you bring in, whoever. And that'll be interesting too, assuming they get to that point. Who do they bring in? Do they bring in McKay? Do they bring in Trayson Bourget? Or even do they bring in Emerson Geilman, who showed really well in fall camp? That's going to be interesting to me if, assuming they get to that point, who they trot out as that second guy to take some snaps. But, yeah, I'd give him 3 quarters to let him operate, build up that lead, because I think you do need to have a little bit of style points too. You can't just win this game 35-3, and I think there's got to be a certain rhythm. They got to be really consistent and operating at a high level, and that's a tall task for a true freshman. But you got the personnel around Bear Bachmeier to make that happen against a bad FCS team. Offensive line's a little bit retooled. Obviously, Waylon Lapuaho not going to give it a go today. TJ Woods this week told me it'll be Sonny Mocassini at left guard, and then right guard, probably Austin Leausa in that spot. And then you've got at the tackles, Jada and Gentry and Bruce Mitchell at center. Bruce Mitchell had some struggles in fall camp with some of the snaps. They've kind of tightened that up. They feel really good about Bruce heading into the season. So you've got personnel, if you're Bear, around you to keep you upright. Don't take any unnecessary hits. I know he's going to want to take off and run, but try to avoid as much contact as possible. Be smart. Go 3 quarters, and then the fourth quarter, let another QB come and finish off the job.
I'm going to set L.J. Martin's over-under on carries at 20.5. You taking the over or the under?
I'll take slightly the under this one because I do think you can work in
might come out
Sione Moa more on this one. So I'll go slightly under. I think going forward, though, he needs to always be at 20+. But in this game, I think you want to be a little bit delicate with L.J. Martin because of his history with injuries. And you kind of saw that in fall camp, too, where LJ had some great runs, but at the same time, they were very selective when they're picking their spots to have LJ Martin participating in team portions. So I would expect more of that. So around 17-18 would be kind of the number for me for LJ today.
One of the things that really stood out to me earlier this week was Aaron Roderick saying that one of the strengths of this offense is the veteran players, is the leaders and the guys with the experience on this offense, right? You talked Chase Roberts, we just talked LJ Martin. Which guy out of all the veterans is going to be the most important to helping Bear Bachmeier succeed this season?
Probably Carson Ryan, and you guys were talking about him in the previous segment, but I think that Ryan, he was a standout. Every media window, every practice that we got to see, he was making plays. Whether it was, Bear Bachmeier, McKay Hillstead, they were targeting Carson Ryan often in team portion. It was going downfield, too, and making big plays, explosive plays, chunk yardage. So Carson Ryan, to me, I think he can be a safety valve for this group. And even to a lesser degree, Kean Need, who's going to be tight end number 2, comes in from Weber State, New Mexico. Excellent blocker, and he's almost like an additional offensive lineman, but I think a better receiver than probably people give him credit for. He's got great bloodlines. His uncle was Spencer Need, a former great BYU tight end back in the early 2000s. He'll be pretty good for BYU. After those top 2 guys, that tight end spot's a little lean, in my opinion, coming into the year. They like Ethan Erickson, but he's always been snake bit with injuries. He's probably that tight end 3 for BYU, but Carson Ryan could be really big for BYU. And when I talked to Kevin Gilbride, the tight end coach in camp, I said, what did you see in Ryan that really gave you some conviction? Because statistically, he hasn't done much at UCLA and at Utah, and they just said he's got the perfect build, the versatility that they've been coveting since they joined the Big 12 at the tight end position, because they feel like they've been so predictable with their tight ends that when you had certain guys in a certain play, you knew the run was coming or a pass call was coming. With Carson Ryan and Need, they can be a lot less predictable, and they can have more 2 tight end sets on the field with that 12 personnel. So Ryan's going to be a big piece for BYU this season. So I think he's one of those guys that you look to often if you're Bear Bachmeier.
Mitch, we can't talk about BYU and not bring up the defense. I'm sure they're licking their chops for tonight's game, but being one of the top units in the Big 12 last year, what areas, if any, do you think they can improve upon from last season?
Well, I think the sack number, last year they ended up with 20, but it was 108th nationally in college football. And I know sacks are not the end-all, be-all, but, man, as we saw with Micah Parsons, this sport's willing to pay a premium for guys that can get to the quarterback, and Jack Kelly's made it clear he wants to get to 10 sacks. Isaiah Glasker's got big goals as well, and they've got a better talent. There's not as much experience this year outside of the guys like Glasker and Kelly and then Keanu Tanavasa, but I think the athleticism on the edges with a guy like Tausili Akana, Hunter Clegg, Logan Latui, who's a veteran presence at outside edge, and then those bull rushers, Viliami Pua, Bodie Schoonover, you can play them in a lot of different sets when they go to that cowboy front in the interior with Keanu Tanavasa. They can swing them inside. BYU has got a lot of versatility and a lot of athleticism. This is not your typical BYU team that they lack speed. They've got that in bunches, and they got big-bodied guys, too, that can still play at a high level. So I think you're going to see a bigger sack number, I think, this year. And it's got to happen. I think BYU 2 years ago, they were at 11 sacks. Last year saw an uptick with 20, paired up with, a nation-leading interception total where they've had 15 consecutive games with at least 1 interception. That's been a great thing for BYU's defense. But I think they're going to get home more to those QBs and generate more havoc. So I expect that. And then, I think the cornerback position is also a spot, too, where just kind of want to see how it plays out. It's kind of a cornerback by committee. Maury Bamba has emerged as that number 1 guy. Number 2 is Evan Johnson, and maybe 2B is Trey Alexander. And then you got guys like Marcus McKenzie, Jaden Dunlap, who's probably the highest IQ guy in the cornerback unit. But it's a group that has to replace Jacob Robinson and Mark Collins, and you don't have Jonathan Cabea at nickel. You're going to have Tommy Parasis, a safety, sliding into that spot. So kind of seeing how the secondary shapes up today. I don't know if we learned much because Portland State is so inept offensively, but just kind of seeing how they operate and who gets kind of the most snap counts in this game. I think that'll be something that's interesting to me as well.
Mitch, most importantly, what's the concession situation going to look like at LaVell Edwards Stadium this year? What kind of changes are we going to see? Are we going to see some different colored Cougar tails? Let's go.
Well, they rolled out in the northwest corner, Brigham's truck, and it says on the little window, this is the plate. So nice. Playing off of words.
Dang it.
Barbecue? Brigham's wagon is a new thing this year. I think they rolled it out at the end of the season.
What is it, a bowl of chili? What is it? Some
It's kind of like food truck food. So I think they've got like a bunch of different, almost like Instagram-worthy type of plates, if you will, where it's like, I'm going to post this on social media. I haven't seen the full menu yet, but that's something that's new. I think for the most part, it's pretty much the standard stuff for fans. But, I kind of got a little glimpse of the stadium earlier this week, and they've got some updated stuff on the press box with the new Alamo Bowl banner. There's always little fine, deep in the weeds stuff. That stuff's not interesting here on the show, but there's some little tweaks.
We love it, though, but we love it.
The field's going to have no painted end zones like they've been doing the last few years with non-conference. They just kind of leave the white BYU, and then the midfield will be painted royal blue. But, yeah, game day is here and should be energetic crowd. I mean, the interest in BYU football has been off the charts. Highest number of season tickets sold ever for BYU. They sold more than, I think it was 47,000 season tickets this year. Sellout crowd tonight. So Cougar fans are fired up for this program right now, and rightfully so on the heels of an 11-2 season. Let's see what they can do this year now with a true freshman quarterback.
Mitch, thank you for all your fine work. Thank you for joining us, not just today, but all throughout the week on these airwaves. We'll definitely be checking up with your work on KSLSports.com.
You bet, guys. Take care.
There he is. That is Mitch Harper, BYU insider for us here at KSL Sports. Let's take a break. Coming up next, let's hear from I want to hear from Aaron Roderick. He had some interesting things to say about this BYU offense and how it's going to be running with the true freshman quarterback. So we'll get to that next as we wrap up the BYU hour of College Football Saturday, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
You're locked on to College Football Saturday on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back into College Football Saturday here on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. At Alex Kirry, that's Christian Esparza. I'm Alex Napoles, and this is the final segment here of the BYU Hour of College Football Saturday. Before we get into keys of the game, Christian, you brought up a clip about Aaron Roderick and the way that he was going to communicate with his offense, and we'll play that here in a moment, but it's an interesting comment about how he's going to communicate with Bear through the helmet radio and how they're going to try to run this offense and help him get comfortable. And so here's Aaron Roderick talking about his communication with Bear earlier this week.
That's huge. This year we've refined our system a little bit. We can communicate even better this year than we did last year. We've made a few tweaks to some of our terminology so that we can, be able to talk more before we snap the football. And, I'm not going to be telling him what to do every play. I don't want to fill his head with too many ideas, but definitely can give a couple reminders before you snap the ball.
I don't want to be a negative influence on the kid, all right? I don't want to have too much stuff going on in his head. I do think it's interesting. I mean, they've had this system for a while, so I don't know what the difference would be with how they used it with him versus Jake Retzlaff. Is it have they increased the time that they're allowed to talk to them? I'm not really sure, but I do love that these guys have these. What was I watching? I think it was Aaron Rodgers, maybe, who in his helmet he got these blockers that are just straight up. I mean, it's basically like headphones inside the ear.
Yeah,
because you have the ear holes here, and it would be tough to hear stuff.
Well, that's why in the NFL you see all the time the quarterbacks covering their ears.
So now they're just straight up. He's like, I don't even care if people are talking to me on the field. I don't want to hear them. I just need to hear this play going.
Well, I like too that he said he's not going to be in his ear too much because with any quarterback it's tough, but especially for a freshman, you don't want to put blinders on them when they're on the field. You don't want to be filling their head with too much of, hey, look for this. If this happens, then do this. Let the quarterback go out there and play. He's got to figure it out anyway. Yeah, go give him a heads up. Say, hey, looks like it's going to be a cover 3 here. Look for this route. But you don't want to be, I guess, giving him anxiety with just giving him all these things to be on the lookout for. But I like that facet of being able to communicate with Bear while he's on the field.
There's lots that this game's going to present, I think, for BYU in this first one, and so. We were talking to each other pre-show here. We've got some keys to how BYU can get this first win in the back pocket and move on to next week, taking on Stanford at home. First, you got to take care of business and get your first looks at Bear Bachmeier. So what do you guys have for your keys to BYU winning this football game tonight?
I think the biggest key for me is Bear needs to think that he belongs. And I mean in the sense that you need to – as a coaching staff, show that you trust Bear. You need to establish the chemistry with the offense, have everybody trust Bear, and you would assume they have some level of that, and that's why Bear Bachmeier was named the starting quarterback, right? But you need to be able to feel that during the game, and you do that by establishing Bear in his confidence, in his arm, and in his mind. You brought up scripted plays earlier, right? You bring out the scripted playbook, let him execute that to perfection, because he should be able to do that against the Portland State team. So, yeah, let him go out there and build that confidence, because this week 1 game, although it is against an FCS school, it's instrumental for building Bear Bachmeier's confidence for the entire season, right? You need him to come out and have a good showing today, to feel good going into next week against Stanford, and then you go into the bye and then East Carolina before you start Big 12 play. That all starts here.
It all starts here, and obviously Bear Bachmeier is going to be what everybody's watching tonight. And I think at the minimum, you have to figure out and find a way to get 250 through the air. I think that the 250 number is going to be vital for BYU tonight. Not only obviously to win this game, but like you said, Christian, to get his feet under him and to get that confidence growing, because it's going to be needed as BYU heads into next week against Stanford.
Is it too much for me to ask to add on to the 250 through the air that BYU get 200 on the ground? I think it would be great to have that kind of balance. 450 yards against a Portland State team should not be impossible at all.
No.
Having a massive amount of balance and prioritizing that should not be a battle at all, because you should basically control these situations that you're in most of the time. So when that happens, is it going to be something that you look at as a fan and you go, okay, if you have a balanced number like that, that means the team has been just controlling the whole thing. And if that's what it is, I'd love to see 200 yards on the ground as a total, as an offense. I'd love to see LJ Martin get a 100-yard on the ground day just to kind of open the season up.
Right.
And again, kind of make sure that Bear feels comfortable in that sense. But I do love that idea that there could be this moment where, I don't know. He's one of these. It's one of these things that I really am excited for this balanced offense to see what they can do. 4+ sacks for the defense, I wrote down.
That should be easily attainable, because that's where that
you say that, Christian. I've watched this defense for the past 10 years not really have an aggressive, a pass rusher.
That is the biggest difference between, a P4 FBS school and then a Portland State level FCS school is the trench play. So you should be able to completely dominate the game at the line of scrimmage. So the hope would be, that the 4 sacks come relatively easily. But you're right, Alex. I mean, that is the sack number is not anything that has been a given in recent history for the Cougs.
Give me 4+ sacks. That's why that one I actually like more than any of the other ones.
Because again, building confidence for the season. That's the whole point of this game, not just for Bear, but for the entire team, right? You want to ramp yourselves up.
Let's take a break and wrap up here the hour of BYU talk. We'll jump into the next hour, which we'll jump into this Utah at UCLA game. We'll talk about the Utah offense, the offensive identity. We'll hear from Kyle Whittingham, Wayshawn Parker, and a couple other select players as we get you ready for Utah taking on UCLA. That's on the other side here on College Football Saturday on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.